Thank you for joining us, everyone. We are excited to talk to you all today about data. And based on the data I have, the first 12 days of 2021 have lasted about 2 years. So I'm glad we just got that deep breathing exercise to help us. In light of ongoing changes to privacy regulations, in light of increased demands for trust and transparency by consumers and platforms, we must find a way to make sense of the massive and disparate data sets that exist in order to succeed in this post-cookie era. For example, weather, an unstructured, massive, and diverse data set that can help us reach consumers in a privacy-focused way and still deliver their needs. I have the privilege of working at IBM Watson Advertising, where Watson is in the water. I've been talking a lot about this with our partners, our customers, with their success in mind. And I'm thrilled that many of you are joining us today, especially Jay and Joe. The success of today's session in my mind is not just diving into 30 minutes of the value of data, but it's strategically highlighting that link to leveraging a technology that we believe should be foundational to our industry going forward. Yes, there are non-PII and cookieless data signals out there that will help you reach your customers, but we need tools to make sense of all of these data sets. IBM is a trusted brand who has been solving business challenges and leveraging this foundational technology across many industries for over 100 years. I can't believe I could actually say that. We have decided to take a bigger, bolder leadership role to help the industry understand and leverage AI, which those of you who have been following IBM know that it's one of our core competencies of the go forward of this company. So without further ado, let's kick this off and get it started. Thank you, Jay and Joe, for joining us. For those of you who are not lucky enough to know these two gentlemen, they are brilliant data minds, and I'm so grateful to have them on this panel today. How are you both doing?
Doing great. Yeah, so excited to be here today.
Good, good, great t-shirt.
I got to promote.
There we go. So let's talk about data, right? Specifically the data used in your advertising programs. Jay, can you give us some insight as to how you've historically used data to reach your audiences and what you're doing to prepare for these changes in traditional identifiers?
Yeah, no, thanks for that question. And, I think to answer that question, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to spend a minute just giving a little context about just where the category is and just how Petco is responding.
Great.
So, over 2/3 of households are pet parents these days and growing. Obviously last year and the pandemic has been, really disruptive. But, one of the silver linings is that there was almost 3.5 million pets that became new pet parents into the households, which is fantastic. And so, as we think about that, our relationship with our pets is evolving. Now, when I was growing up, kind of pets were kind of relegated to, kind of the outdoor area in the backyard. That's evolved to, kind of pets coming inside the home, actually having their own beds. And, in the case of my family and probably a lot of families, they're now sleeping in our beds. And so, kind of the relationship with our pets have changed. Actually, 94% of households consider their pets actually part of the family. And so, that actually has helped us, kind of just redefine who Petco is and how we've transformed the organization from a pet retailer to a pet health and wellness company. And what's really interesting when you kind of unpack that and, kind of just to help answer the question, to be a pet health and wellness company is inextricably linked with being a data and analytics company. Mm-hmm. And so, the way that we are thinking about this, we're lucky enough to have a PALS membership community that's over 20 million strong. So there's a lot of information that, this community is giving us every day and a lot of data signals. You can also combine that with the fact that, we own our own POS data and we can start to combine sales data with our marketing efforts. And so that's allowed us to really evolve very quickly in the way that we approach our marketing from one that used to be, DMP cookie signal-based and pixel-based to one that's now, focused on clean rooms, using our PALS membership data, creating lookalike models, creating an identity layer, through a company like a LiveRamp, and allowing us to, to do much better kind of first-party marketing. And lo and behold, it's no surprise that what we found is that, all of this first-party matching and targeting, because we actually have pretty accurate data matching, that the results from that is actually, outperforming kind of third-party in a kind of traditional cookie-based marketing, 3-to-1 at least. So it's very powerful for us.
Absolutely. I mean, it's pretty impressive, the size of your loyalty program and how you guys are going about it. I'm happy to, I look forward to hearing you talk about it more later on in this chat. So thank you, Jay. Joe, the use of cloud-based exchanges for data seems to be taking off. In your experience with AWS Data Exchange, why do you think this is happening right now?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question and a really interesting trend that we're seeing. The reality is that companies were already transacting data in the cloud. They were all using all sorts of tools like S3 or Kinesis or Redshift to transact data. So we kind of already saw this trend happening, I think largely just because of the affordability and elasticity and speed that you get from cloud-based applications. I think the advent of the AWS Data Exchange in particular was all these companies are already transacting data through AWS, but they realized that a lot of the work that they were doing to facilitate those transactions was repetitive or commoditized, and they really wanted us to kind of take that on. So you can imagine things like contracting, billing, data security reviews, and such. Those are already areas in which AWS is really strong. So if they're able to kind of put that work on us, that allows them to really focus on, the real mission, which is let's find and license great data assets, and then let's use those for really exciting applications that can really serve our customers well. I think now that a lot of these companies have started to engage with Data Exchange, though, both them and us are starting to see a lot of the possibilities. Leveraging a tool like SageMaker, for example, for machine learning, leveraging tools like Redshift for very kind of easy and simple data sharing. There's just kind of a whole world of possibilities that I think our customers are now seeing, and I think the cloud is really essential in facilitating that.
I agree. And I think as more customers like Petco, more brands like Petco start to develop, their internal data stream, it's really beneficial that AWS has come forward as a leader in this space. And Joe, what types of data seem to be most useful and or in demand in terms of the data exchange? And how do you envision these data sets changing in a post-cookie world?
Yeah, so AWS Data Exchange is actually a relatively young service. We launched at the beginning of 2020, and so if you had asked me this question then, the answer would have been very different than the answer now. So I think what we saw was that when the pandemic first took hold, we saw a lot of enterprises kind of on their back foot, really trying to grapple with the changes that resulted from that. So they were trying to license data like just virus trends, macroeconomic trends, and really just trying to figure out like what was the impact of this kind of unforeseen event. I think as a lot of companies, and we've been really impressed by the adaptability of our customers, as a lot of companies kind of started to grapple with this and understand some of these changes that were happening, they started to think more proactively and started to consume data assets like location, for example, to understand consumer habits, credit card transaction data, and things like weather data, for example. Weather is something that is increasingly more important in the context of COVID. You can imagine if you can only eat outside, you're more likely to go do that in 60-degree weather than 20-degree weather. So those are some of the changes that we saw. And then, to the question about kind of the post-cookie world, we do expect our buyers to adapt, much like they did for COVID. I think identity resolution solutions, as Jay mentioned, are going to become increasingly more important as companies seek to deliver great experiences for their customers without kind of the infrastructure they've relied on historically. And then I think data sets that aren't quite as dependent on individual level identifiers are also going to become more important. So that includes weather data, that includes location trends, that includes consumer spend trends. There are a variety of contextual signals that might become more important. So we expect kind of a combination of identity solutions and less individual identifier dependent solutions to become more prevalent.
Absolutely. I mean, we're pretty much hearing the same thing over here as well. Thank you, Joe. So in this new cookieless future, trusted high quality data sets are going to be of the utmost importance. What do you look for in a partner or provider? Jay, as an advertiser, what is your opinion?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, we have a North Star that says, kind of what's best for pets is best for their pet parents, which is always best for Petco. And we kind of call that purpose-driven performance. And, again, what underpins that is strong data and analytics and our approach to data with respect to privacy. Now, we're a California-based company. We've been on the front lines of working with the CCPA regulations, actually helping drive it. We actually have a chief privacy officer. From that, we've actually built a Petco responsibility framework around this, which, kind of data and privacy, underpins that. And so, we only work with partners that can adhere to the tenets that we've outlined in this framework. And so, really, kind of trust and transparency is at the heart of that. That's first and foremost, and that's table stakes. Secondarily, when we start to, kind of just analyze data sets and, kind of what's important for us, we like to say that we're only as good as the predictive models that we can build.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great that we're kind of in this world and, we're at a point in our organization where we have the data fidelity to actually create predictive models and closed loop attribution systems. And, what is probably unsurprising within that is that, kind of pet life stage and purchase cycles are hugely important and deterministic within that, but we've also found, kind of interesting data points that we wouldn't have had on our radar, but, as we've, kind of leveraged AI and machine learning, interesting things have come up. What we found is a great kind of deterministic data point is that, when people are starting to build fences, we realize that that's actually correlated with being a new pet parent. And so, it's funny, some of these data points that start to surface as you dig into it.
That's interesting. That is, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I know personally this year I had to send holiday gifts to about 10 pets that I never had to send to before.
Exactly. That's right. 3.5 million more new pet parents now.
Exactly. And thank you, Jay. And Joe, would love to hear your perspective as an agnostic platform in terms of data sets that are going to be of the utmost importance, you think, for you and your customers moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that we've always looked for and one thing that we'll continue to look for in the future is just quality. The source of the data being high quality is super important. High quality differentiated data sets, that's great. I would say equally important, though, is also the methodology. If you can organize, normalize, and deliver that data in a way that's immediately usable for the customer, that carries a lot of value. So that's something, regardless of COVID, regardless of identifiers, those will remain stable. I think as we're thinking about the future, we do think a lot about cloud enablement. Cloud-enabled data providers we do view as kind of the future of kind of successful data procurement. I think, one, just being in the cloud and hosting your data in the cloud, I think that kind of opens up a lot of possibilities. And so, we're particularly excited about that, but also it allows these providers to kind of be more responsive to customer needs. You can imagine a customer comes to you and says, hey, I've been receiving data as a flat file into S3 for a while, but that massive data feed is actually a lot for us to take on. What we actually want to do is we actually want you to just host the database in the cloud, and we just want to be able to run queries against it so we can pull out a slice of data that's most meaningful or useful to us. If a provider is actually hosting that data in the cloud, they can be super responsive to customer needs like that. And we think that's a really big value add.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit on something very important there and very key, of course, transparency, source. It's really about the ease of facilitation and does a brand have a massive data science team that they want to use these massive data sets and comb through on their own, or do they want to facilitate a more actionable, smaller set that could really help drive the analysis that they're looking to conduct? And Amazon Web Services Data Exchange has done a really great job of making that available. I spent some time diving in there, and it's quite impressive. So at Watson Advertising, we believe that AI is key to ensure advertisers are able to create compelling, relevant messaging without the use of third-party cookies or identifiers. And specifically when it comes to data, we find AI allows us to analyze, aggregate, and optimize increasingly large, complex data sources like weather to find patterns upon which we can activate. Petco has done a lot of innovative work, leveraging AI to improve end-to-end customer experience. Can you talk a little bit about how you are using AI to make better and faster marketing decisions?
Yeah, I think just the fact that we're talking about using AI and machine learning for marketing decisions is just awesome. Just how the marketing industry has evolved is still just, kind of amazing to me. I have spent the last 25 years in marketing, trying to solve this old, kind of Wanamaker saying of, I know half of my advertising works, I just don't know what half. And we have the tools now to actually be able to answer that question, which is great. And I know that we're all under kind of this tremendous pressure to just prove out the efficacy of marketing, and just to be blunt, to really prove out that we are an investment center and not a cost center. And I am so blessed with just the abundance of data. I can go in the boardroom now with a million supporting data points behind me to prove out how our marketing is driving business outcomes, which is fantastic. And so now we talked about kind of the predictive models that we're building. We have the fidelity of the data through the empowerment of AI and machine learning to understand and tie back media performance to CAC and LTV, to ROAS, to margin, to vet and grooming bookings, even to foot traffic in store. Ultimately, we are creating pretty detailed lifetime models to understand kind of how people are shopping in those life cycles down to a SKU level. What's also unique about our business when you start to unpack it is that we look at it nationally, but ultimately we're a network of 1,500 individual stores that have their own unique dynamics. And again, through the use of AI and machine learning, we have the ability now to optimize our media spend and leverage it up or down, almost, kind of in real time by store, kind of down to the zip code level, which is, again, these are just, kind of just shocking evolutions that have happened in a short amount of time. And so, there's this interesting paradigm that I think, kind of business has never moved this quick, but it's never going to move this slow again.
Yeah.
So, we really do need these tools, to move at the speed of humanity. And ultimately, this is what our customers need from us. And this is how they care for their parent, it's how they care for their pets and how they become a really fantastic pet parent. And we have to deliver on that.
Absolutely. And, you did touch on something there that I want to bring up a little. I spend a lot of time speaking with our partners and our brands about localized behaviors, which are more imperative now than ever. So, the fact that you guys are able to get down to the very niche analytics and see how every piece of the puzzle is driving at a local level is really what's helping to propel your business even further and react. And, excited to hear a little later on the things that you've done in response to COVID as well. So Joe, I want to talk a little bit more about weather. I have spent a lot of time diving into the AWS Data Exchange, and I noticed that weather is very prevalent in there, and it's clearly something clients are interested in. Why do you think this is, and what do you think is driving the activity around weather?
Yeah, I think there's a few factors there. So one is, weather just affects every component of everyday life. Whether you go pick up lunch or whether you use DoorDash, whether you go out to dinner or whether you get to, clearly I'm thinking about food, pre-lunch panel. But it does affect every component of everyday life. I mean, every decision that you might make on a daily basis, whether it's pre or post COVID, is probably impacted in some way by the weather factors around you. I think as a business, it also applies to every customer engagement. You might show a different message when it's sunny versus rainy.
Mm-hmm.
You might show a specific promotion, just based on the fact that there's snow on the ground outside. And so if you think about all the different kind of ways in which a enterprise might engage with their customers, and then all the different kind of touch points and applications that are impacted there, weather is an important kind of data factor in all of those. And as we think about, a lot of the companies that are consuming data through AWS Data Exchange, and then taking that data and porting that directly into other AWS applications, I mentioned SageMaker as an example. If you're trying to train a machine learning model and you don't have weather data flowing into that, that's a big risk, because that can be such an important decisioning factor for both you as well as your customers. You can imagine if you're trying to query or visualize data, if you're looking at various kind of consumer trends and you don't put that in the context of the weather patterns that might be around them, you might miss something important. We had an example of a wine company that was really leaning into quality control during their shipping. They wanted to make sure they didn't have significant weather fluctuations throughout kind of their delivery supply chain. And so they used weather data to actually figure out, okay, how do we make sure that the product that gets to the end customer is as high quality as possible? And that's just one of many examples of how smart brands are using weather to make the right decisions for their customers.
That's great. I totally agree. We ask 1,000 top CMOs if weather affects their business. They all say yes, but not many of them know how. And that's why we're excited, for folks like yourself to have these type of exchanges available for people to easily be able to pull the right types of analysis that drive their business. So thank you, Joe. Jay, a question for you. Users of our Weather Channel app have told us in surveys that thunderstorms and precipitation are the conditions that they care most about when managing their pets day to day. Have you seen that reflected in shopping behavior and managing their pets day to day? And how might you consider activating on any of those types of insights?
Yeah, that's a great insight, by the way.
Makes sense.
It does, because I think, weather affects pets in the same way that it kind of affects humans. I mean, you can start to think about extreme weather patterns, and, there's definitely the pantry loading effect, when snowstorms come in and things like that. I mean, we definitely experience, pantry loading, and obviously we have to plan for that in our inventory and logistics around that. It also affects, weather affects pets in the same way that it affects, humans, if you think about like senior pets and just, weather on, kind of aches and pains and joint pain, being able to understand kind of those weather patterns and, kind of how it's affecting your pet's joints is hugely important. If you start to, kind of unpack this, I think, when we talk about, kind of a health and wellness company being inextricably linked to a data and analytics company, I think that pet parents are starting to expect, a bit of predictiveness in, kind of a company's ability to help them manage their health and wellness of their pets. In the same way that, there's kind of telematics on cars, and you understand, when tires are going flat or you need an oil change, I think pet parents are expecting that same level of help and predictiveness, and understanding how to deal with their pets, and especially in relation to weather, so you can understand, maybe if there's a high pollen count, what that does to, kind of the allergies of their pets. And, again, certain, kind of just weather patterns, I think, really start to affect, how much you're going outside, when you're going outside for that walk on a daily basis. And so, I can really understand kind of what sits behind that stat, because, weather is so inextricably linked just to, our daily just patterns of life.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen a lot of changes as of recent in terms of behavior across our apps, our weather apps. And instead of people looking to see what they're going to wear for the day, are they going to drive? Are they going to take the train or the bus because of the weather? Are they going to bring their lunch? They're like, what time of day can I get everyone out of my household right now for an hour so I can take a walk or get some work done? Right? That behavior is obviously changing a lot. And I agree with all the statements that you made there. So with that said, we know that COVID has changed how consumers behave, similar to a severe storm. What impacts have you seen in behaviors? Joe, has there been any change to the data that your clients are acquiring?
So the short answer is yes. I referenced earlier, at the outset of the pandemic, a lot of folks were caught on their back foot, and they were really just trying to react. And then over the course of the pandemic, we've seen a lot of companies, be more proactive. And again, we've been impressed by the adaptability of our customers. I think that the pandemic didn't cause any of the changes we're seeing. I think it just accelerated changes that were already happening. So things like e-commerce and distributed work and, growth in delivery services and gaming and such, these are things that were already happening, but the pandemic just fast forwarded it 10x. And so as we see kind of, our customers changing data needs, it really is in the context of a lot of those kind of macro changes that are happening across broader consumer behavior. We're super curious to see how things will evolve, in a post-vaccinated world. There's a lot of ambiguity, I think, about how quickly things will bounce back or if certain things will bounce back. But some of those big trends we saw around kind of distributed work and e-commerce and so forth, that's driving a lot of the data procurement decisions we're seeing among our customers.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And Jay, how about your customer shopping behaviors? How have those kind of changed? I know you guys have had to do some, fast work to adapt.
Yeah, just to back up what Joe was saying, we definitely see all those trends applied to our business. When the pandemic, kind of first kind of outbroke and people were quarantining, it obviously had a huge impact on our brick and mortar business. And we were kind of ready to take a step back and kind of turn off our marketing. But because we could see the data and the demand that was happening in the marketplace for our e-commerce solutions, and because we had the ability to create closed loop attribution models and predictive models, I was able to go back to the board, with a high level of accuracy and say, if we invested a certain amount, what it would deliver in terms of top line and bottom line. We ended up doubling our investment during that time, specifically to support the e-com demand. And it was hugely popular and successful for us. And that, kind of just led to a lot of innovation, like Joe was saying, it really accelerated our business. So we stood up curbside pickup in 2 weeks, something that would normally take us 6 months. About a month ago, we just launched same day delivery nationwide. Again, just recognizing that people want to have that convenience, at home in the same way they have in store. But now we're even thinking about it in the way that we manage our services, telehealth, tele-vet services, even training. We can do virtual training now, and education systems. One of the interesting things that's happening right now, because we're spending so much time with our pets, while we're going out and walking and spending more time outside, we're also giving them a little bit more treats. So obesity is actually something that we're seeing. We actually just launched a whole education session on pet obesity and dog obesity in particular. And so there's so much more that we're doing, in a more kind of distributed and online way, and really just giving our consumers that convenience to, can get the services in whatever fashion that they want.
Thank you. And thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jay. I see David is here, so our time is up. I'd love to keep going. And I know we didn't get to any questions. So for everyone on the line, I think you could find us all and ask us anything that you'd like. And thank you both for an inspiring and inspirational session.
This is great. I think we have no choice but to schedule part 2 for another day soon, right? Like, it's a great topic. We can